Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of All Out War. On this episode, we are going to be answering some questions. And so, we've got some explaining to do, which I'll do in just a minute. Rosie, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey dude, I'm doing good.
Yeah?
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We'll get into all this stuff in a minute. We got a lot to talk about tonight, but
let's take care of some housekeeping.
Let's do some housekeeping. It's time for our little
baby update.
Our baby update. What's going on there, Megan?
Hello, how are you?
Good. Once again, I just want to preface that this is not Megan's baby. It's all of our baby.
Yes.
So why don't you give us an update?
So, we are on week 19.
Okay.
And what is going on with the baby's development is there is a coating around the skin now that apparently looks like cottage cheese. So that's great.
Nice.
But it protects the baby's skin from becoming wrinkled as it sits in all the liquid and all that stuff going on. I suppose you would get pretty pruny after 9 months.
Interesting.
So this is a good thing. The lungs are developing. So that is also a big thing going on. And you might get the first kick this week.
Kick it.
So, yeah.
Like
so cottage cheese and wiggles. That is what is happening right now.
And it's still a baby.
And it's still a baby.
And it's still alive. And thank you for that wonderful baby update.
Absolutely.
We are getting closer to finding out the gender. So at some point here, we'll figure out what we're...
I think we should do the golden ring test where you like hold it over. Maybe if we hold it over the podcast.
Oh.
It'll swing to the right.
Like an iPhone.
Is it the right is a boy? I don't know.
That's divination. We don't do that on this thing.
Oh, okay, fair. All right.
We keep it cool here, not cultic. Anyways, thank you, Megan. That was a good update there. So, we're going to answer some questions, and we've got a lot to fill you in on. So sit back, grab a coffee, and enjoy.
You're listening to the All Out War podcast.
That's right, warriors. This is All Out War. Welcome to another episode. You have reached the crossroads of theology, culture, and politics, and everything in between, from Bigfoot to aliens to intergalactic asteroids. I don't know. I just made that up. Rosie, what's up, man?
Hey dude, what's going on?
Not a whole lot. We missed you last week.
Yes.
All of us did. We missed an entire episode last week because you were gone.
Well, you know what? I had a good time.
You had a good
So, I also missed being here.
Yeah. So you were getting hitched, right?
I was getting hitched. I was at a wedding.
You were at a wedding, but you weren't getting hitched. I don't want all our single girls that are listening to be like, "Oh, Rosie's is finally married. My dreams are over."
Let's be honest. Even if I was married. No, I'm just kidding.
Just keep that in mind, though. Ladies, he's available. So
yeah,
if you're into tattooed...
They have no idea what I look like.
Tattooed men with big beards and strong tattooed men with big beards and love to talk about fringe topics. He's your man.
Yeah, I was going to say, we were just talking before this, that my future wife is either going to be absolutely insane, like, because she's going to be talking about more weird stuff than I am, and I'm going to be the one that's like, yo, you need to stop doing that. We're at the drive-in. Just grab the sodas and keep going. They don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Or she's going to be the most understanding, sweet, and have just be dismissive in a nice way so that my fragile ego doesn't get hurt.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, hey, guess what the globalists are doing today? And she's like, what is it? Just tell me.
Right.
As she's, I don't know, sitting reading People magazine. And I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, oh, really? Okay. And I'm like, I'm going to go take out the trash. And just totally dismissive in a nice way. So
I don't think you're going to marry a normie.
No.
I just don't think. I think she's going to be super woke.
So she's going to be crazier than I am.
Maybe. Yeah. So that's cool. Maybe we
Yeah.
can add her to the podcast, you know, on
I don't know about that.
well, let's find her first.
Yeah,
and
we
then
have to
we're already making plans. So this, we don't, that's
Anyways, yeah. So I was at a wedding.
yeah. And we missed you. It was, I'm glad you got to go there and have
Good
fun.
to feel missed.
It was nice to have a week off, I'll admit. But we're back, man. And let's tell them what happened. We just got done recording over an hour of recording of a podcast with a guest in studio. And we were having all these technical difficulties to begin with.
That we've never had before.
Ever. And it wasn't like we've had some weird things happen, like when we had a guest before, and it was definitely spiritually
Yeah.
connected. This wasn't anything like that. Like, it wasn't a super spiritual episode. It wasn't some, we weren't pounding through the doors of darkness, and
I like that.
you like that? That's
That's
cool.
a good saying.
That just rolled off my tongue. But it was just a pretty normal, low key, enjoyable podcast, and
And you will never hear it.
no one's gonna hear it. Nobody's gonna.
We're
hear
never
it.
going to tell you who it was.
Right. We won't.
No.
We won't reschedule this thing. It's done. It's been buried, and God has spoken. But
And unlike Jesus, it will not raise from the dead.
it's not coming back.
Did you delete the file?
It's done. It's gone.
done.
Yeah. So
Sorry, guys.
It was technical difficulties. We were literally could not get the microphone to work the right way, and we recorded for an hour, and we were getting signal and stuff, but it just wasn't coming through right. It was very strange, and we have extra, like, our gear is top notch here. It's definitely, it's broadcast recording studio quality, high end stuff. So anyways, that happens. And so now we figured it out after he left, and we were like, well, we got to do something. We didn't do a podcast last week. We can't go 2 weeks without having a podcast, but we didn't plan for it because we were going to have this guest.
Yeah.
So this is sort of like off of the top of our heads. It's going to be kind of a back and forth, kind of badminton back and forth. And it kind of, you had an idea, like we had this great conversation last Monday.
Yeah.
And, we had gone to church, and we were hanging out after church.
We were hanging out at a parking lot.
At a parking lot at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Getting into it.
Right. If you really want to know the secret lives of Rosie and Turner.
We get into enthusiastic theological discussions about interesting stuff in parking lots after 1 a.m.
And I think historically that's how it's been from the beginning for everybody. Like, I don't think we were the first. I think back in, like, the 800s, they would sit in a field, after a church meeting, and they would talk about specific things.
Yeah.
But so.
Well, how about before we get into that?
Yeah.
Hey, did you know?
Did you know? That's right.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I was going to say, you can tell how good of an actor he is right now by the way that he just acted surprised, because he already knows this.
Oh, me?
Yeah. Because I already said it on the previous episode. So act surprised and act like, oh, I didn't know that.
All right. This is my
Even
test.
though I told you. Yeah.
Yeah, because, all right, this is my test. We never, by the way, our listeners don't know, whenever we do Did You Knows, you don't ever tell me.
I never tell you.
You never tell me beforehand. I don't know what they are. So our listeners don't know that. Oh, and we also got to talk about the sticker too. So go ahead, do your Did You Know, and then we'll share.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
Okay, so did you know
Yeah.
that in Switzerland, you can, if you apply for citizenship,
Yeah.
you can be denied because you're too annoying.
What? Oh my! No way! Are you kidding me? That's insane.
Yup.
All right, repeat that again, because I wasn't listening. I was concentrating on my response.
So in Switzerland, so most countries, if you want to get citizenship, it's a federal process. Like
Okay.
the United States has a federal process. It's the same, whichever state, wherever you are.
Yeah.
Switzerland, it's on a local level.
Okay.
So you can get denied. So basically, they're talking about the article I read. This woman was like 42, had lived in Switzerland from the time that she was 8 years old.
Okay.
She was finally like, okay, I'm going to become a Swiss citizen. So she went to go get citizenship, and her town denied her. So they actually do a vote in like you would just go to the public school or wherever they hold elections for
Right.
city council or whatever they do, and everyone in that locale literally votes yes, no, we want to let him be a citizen. And so this particular woman, the one that was 42 or whatever,
Yeah.
she was a staunch, like, in-your-face vegan.
Oh, there you go.
And so so her neighbors were like, no, this lady's super annoying. And so they voted because they don't have to have a reason. They're just like, nah, she's not Swiss.
That's the rest of the
causing a
story.
ruckus, yeah.
She was a vegan. I wonder if she was like vegan and she did like CrossFit.
Probably.
They would be like, you have to leave the country.
Yeah. We're going to deport you.
You're no longer welcome here.
Yeah.
Dude, that's a good did you know.
Yeah, it is a good did you know.
That's cool. I knew it, but I liked it. So, oh man.
So sticker thing.
Oh yeah. So our listening audience, you just heard Megan. She did the baby update, and Austin, her husband, is here. They hang out with us very often with a few other people, and Austin took it upon himself. He just texted me last week, and he's like, "Hey, dude, do you want some stickers?" And I was like, "Sure." And so he works at a place where they can print these stickers. So he made us, I don't know, a handful of stickers with our logo, and
A couple different logos.
Yeah. So we have a couple of our logo that right now that is current, but then he also used artistic liberty and his design skills to enhance our logo even better. Mm-hmm. The best part about it is it says my name on it.
I was going to say, when he showed me those, I was like, this goes against all acts of humility on my part. I strive to be, and I know just by saying, there's always like those people where they're like, oh, I'm so humble,
Right.
And then you're like, you're talking about how humble you are. Obviously you're not that humble, but I do try to live a life of humility.
Yeah.
And it's weird seeing my pseudonym up on a thing that people might want to put somewhere.
Well, dude, you are this podcast. Like,
No.
You are.
No.
But it says All Out War Podcast with Rosie and Turner, and he's modified our logo. We're going to have a picture of it up on Instagram. We'll post it. But here's the thing. We want to give them away. We want people to have them. So if you're listening and you want a sticker, here's all you have to do. Just DM us on Instagram or on Twitter or on our Facebook page. You can message us and just say, hey, I want a sticker. Give us your address. Don't make it public. It's got to be DM because I don't want your address to be out in the public domain.
Yeah.
But DM us and we will mail you a sticker.
Yeah,
just let us know where you live and your name, and we'll put it on there. And we'll and for a nominal fee of $5, we will have Rosie sign it. Is that against your moral code?
No, I'm all about making money.
Super capitalist. I got you. I'm with you on that for sure. No, we want to get these out into the. We don't have merch. We don't have Patreon. We don't have T-shirts. Maybe someday.
Yeah.
Maybe someday it'd be cool to have some stuff like, something if something took off. But anyways, so if you want a sticker, DM us, and as many as we have, we'll give out. And it's free. We'll mail it to you. I'll pay for the stamp. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
So
I got my forever stamps, so they're already paid for.
You had a bunch?
No, I don't.
Honestly, it's like I haven't mailed a letter in so long. I don't know what they cost even. Are they like 50 cents now a piece or something?
I have no idea. Probably more than that.
Oh man.
I mean, we have to stay. That's how the post office stays afloat. Is by charging more than UPS.
Dude, I heard that the second highest paid position in the federal government is the postmaster.
Postmaster? That makes sense.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
It makes no sense.
Doesn't keep anything. What's the first highest? President?
The president, yeah.
Oh.
President's the first highest, then the postmaster.
You know what?
It makes no sense, does it? I know.
You know what?
Say what?
Just knowing how weird our country is with all these things. I'll make a promise to everybody. Next time for the Did You Know, I'm going to do some research into the postmaster. I'm just going, I bet you there's some really crazy thing.
Oh yeah.
About the postmaster has some powers that nobody knows about.
Right.
I'm sure he has something.
What if he can declare war? He's like, he's third in line for the presidency. No one really knows. They think it's the Speaker of the House, but
Right.
really it's not. You know, they've been fooling us. Or maybe he's an add-in to the Supreme Court if somebody died, like a temporary judge.
He writes the presidential letters.
He writes
It's the presidential letters.
He definitely delivers them.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Yeah, that's so get your sticker. Let us know who you are and where you live, and that sounds really creepy, but we'll send you a sticker.
yeah.
And if you're close, we might come by and visit you. I don't know, maybe not. No,
I won't.
you're shaking your head. I'm not.
I'm
No,
not.
I won't either. All right. So so now that we've gotten all the baby update,
Housekeeping
did you
and all
know, and yeah, all that stuff, all that needless banter that tries to be funny, we can now move on to
Hey, other people were laughing that were not me. Our totally non-biased studio audience was laughing. That we totally don't ask them to laugh.
we don't have an applaud sign
No.
that lights up. So we were having a conversation on Monday night,
We were.
and you brought up a couple good questions, and
Yeah.
and they're just things that you were I think they were spurred on by driving home from North Carolina where your wedding was, and you had some hours in the car, and you were just like, hey, let me think
Yeah, I
about
was
these
listening.
things.
Yeah.
But so the first one that you asked and you brought up with us was, what was the purpose of the tree in the garden? Like, why would God make the trees in the garden, right? Something
Yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah. I was going to say, so since we have time,
Yeah.
so I was having this cool conversation with a buddy of mine who is, just for some backstory, and I think it's to kill time. No. But so I was talking with this buddy, and this was a question that I never really thought about. And he was like, look, we were just talking about God. He had never been raised in any kind of Christian home. He had he'd never read anything about the Bible. He has no idea. And it was so weird. We were just talking, and he was just saying all this stuff, and I'm like, that's biblical. That's biblical.
And he didn't even know that he was biblical.
He didn't know, and he was like, what? Yo, what? So he asked me, so he's like, this doesn't have any bearing on how I view God, but why would he put why would he even give the ability, not the ability, but he's like, why would he put the tree there in the first place?
Like what's the purpose?
What's the purpose of the tree? Because, yeah. And it was cool later, just as a follow-up to that.
Yeah.
So I just straight up told him, like, dude, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, that's cool. Whatever. He's a really good guy. I talked to him like a week later when we saw each other. And he was like, yo, I was just praying about all this stuff. Because I told him, we were talking for like 2 or 3 hours. And he said, he's just like, you know what? God really convicted me in my heart. And he's like, I don't even care. It doesn't even matter. So,
Well, that's good.
But nonetheless, there's the question. That's how it came up in conversation on Monday.
Yeah. So I was standing there and I was kind of dumbfounded by the question, honestly. I mean, it was like 1 a.m, so
Yeah.
that might have had something to do with it. And I had preached earlier, so that might have had something else to do with it. But I did think about it a little bit, and I hadn't thought about it much more, but then you brought it up again when we realized we need to put out a podcast. We got to talk about something. But no, I'm just kidding. But so I knew I had read a book about it, and it was a book exclusively about the book of Genesis. And there's a great teacher. His name is Henry Morris. He's no longer alive, but he actually was a professor, I think he was an engineering professor at Virginia Tech, and he was a Christian, and he would write a lot of theological books as well. He taught at some Bible colleges too, adjunct, just as he could pick up, classes here and there to teach. But he wrote 2 great books, one on the flood and one on Genesis, and it's basically a record breaking down it's clumps of verses at a time, so it's not line by line or word by word, but basically it's exegetical,
Idea by idea.
yeah, thought for thought.
Yeah.
And so it would be going through, and he explains out a lot of things that in that explaining in that book. It's a fairly thick book. I mean, it's probably I've got it in front of me right now. I want to say it's about 600 pages or something like that. Yeah, about 700 pages. So it's not a small book, but I've read it twice. because once I taught through Genesis, and the other time before I taught through Genesis, I read it when I was researching, thinking about going to teach through Genesis, bought it, read it, realized this is a great resource, and then I've gone back to it many other times. So this is what Dr. Morris says about the tree in the garden, and this is what I was thinking in my head, but I couldn't
articulate it.
Yeah, sometimes like that stuff gets hidden up in that old brain, and that gray matter holds it and doesn't quite let it out like it should.
Yeah.
But he says, God then called Adam's attention to the abundance of his provision for all of Adam's needs. He was free to eat of any tree in the garden, a better word in context than every tree in the garden. So he was free to eat of any tree in the garden, not every tree in the garden, because he had basically put a mandate on him about the
two trees,
the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And it says, as much as he wanted, he could also eat any herb.
Smoking that sticky green stuff.
That was perfect.
You like that?
Yeah.
That he wanted. There was not even a restriction against eating the fruit of the tree of life. So he was able to eat from the tree of life, but not from the tree of
the knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah, and it says there was only a single minor restraint, but it would be this restraint that would test man's love for God, giving him an opportunity to reject God's word if he wished. So there's the first key. It's love and God's word. Okay, and then it says true love is based on trust, of course, and it would have been altogether natural and appropriate for man to have been so grateful to God for all he had done for him, giving him life, a beautiful home, an abundance of good food, and profuse variety, and everything that he would want or need, that his own love for God would cause him gladly to follow his will in all things. Seeing so much evidence of God's love, Adam should naturally assume that any instruction coming from God would likewise evidence God's love for him, and therefore he would willingly obey it. Thus, the one restriction placed by God on Adam, and a bit later on Eve, was singularly appropriate for this purpose. There was every reason, based on love, not fear, for man to conform to God's command, and no reason to disobey. If he did disobey, he would be without excuse. Yet he did have a choice, and so was truly a free moral agent. So he had free will before God, and this was the simplest imaginable test of man's attitude towards his Creator. Would he trust and obey because he loved the one who had shown so much love for him? Or would he doubt God's goodness and resent his control, rejecting and disobeying his word on even such an apparently trivial restriction as one forbidden fruit in all of the paradise of abundant provision? So he put a kind of a slant on it that the tree was purposed, so the purpose of the tree was in there to both exhibit God's love and to allow man to submit himself to God's instruction, God's word. And that's always going to kind of be the case for every believer, for everyone who wants to follow God. When it comes to his word, do you trust God? Do you obey God? Trust and obey. Those are the two basic tenets of a believer.
And I was going to say that I had never thought about that in the way that when you said the trust is based in love, which is the wholly appropriate, way. I really did like, that thing, the way that it was stated. Yeah. Did he trust that all his needs were going to be taken care of? And
right.
Yeah, that was but I do like how he wrapped it all up in love.
Yeah. So could God have done something without putting a tree, in there? Yeah, he could have absolutely. He could have done it any way he wanted, but he did decide to do that, and it was a demonstration of God's love and God's commands and man's trust of that love and obedience to his commands. So they worked hand in hand.
Yeah.
And I just that was what was in my head, but I couldn't get it out.
Articulate
I mean,
it, yeah.
I remember we were talking. I'm like, well, there has to be. I'll have to go back and look at the Hebrew word for tree. And I'm like,
because we were talking about if it was actually a physical tree.
Yeah.
Even in that sense, and so would you say it probably was?
Yeah, I think I think the garden and paradise were exactly that. It was a garden and it was paradise. I think it was a place where God would come
Right.
and reside and hang out with Adam and, and the creation.
In a physical form.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, God, when it says that God walked with Adam and in the, what is it, the dew of the
cool of the day, in the morning and the
cool of the
evening.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that God literally came down
yeah.
and was walking on this physical earth,
Yeah.
which is pretty crazy to think about. But
Yeah.
I was going to say that's kind of one of these things that you'll hear. My brain keeps going to this stuff. That's almost like an esoteric teaching that you'll hear from. I don't know if I'll just say New Agey because that's a good catch-all. Because I'm sure there's New Age people that talk about that.
Yeah.
That there wasn't, that God was trying to deceive them and keep them almost held in bondage.
Right.
So that like the serpent, I've heard this, that it's like the Kundalini. So that's Hindu
Mm-hmm.
Kundalini. Yeah, because they do.
That's very New Age too, right?
Yeah, but they'll talk about, you'll hear people talking about the, I think there's 7 chakras that they talk about in yoga and that New Agey stuff, but that's all Eastern tradition.
Yeah.
And so I've heard stuff where they're talking about the crown chakra, which is, I guess, where they say the third eye is, but it's the highest chakra, I think.
Is that your pineal gland?
Yeah, so they'll say it's right, where your pineal gland is. And the serpent
I like to say it that way.
is the pineal gland. Yeah. But that the serpent is, because they'll represent the Kundalini power, which is I don't have a good definition off the top of my head, but it's like the God power, if you will, that like resides in all of us, man.
The spark of divinity or whatever.
Yeah. And if I'm totally wrong, whatever, correct me. I don't care. But that's what you hear, that like it's not actually that it was there to specifically keep humans in bondage. That they'll say that God, the knowledge of good and evil. Why wouldn't God want them to know good and evil? Because God was this vengeful person that created us to be robots that just control, yes, God, yes, master, whatever you say. And that it's very poignant, the good and evil, that, once we, if we realize that, and I mean, this is even something I was going to say so I'll finish this thought, that, if we got the knowledge of good and evil, we'd, stick it to God and, say, you're doing bad stuff to us, man, like that kind of stuff, and raise our fists. And, why would God not want us to know good and evil? But so that's not the case. I was going to say that also goes into, this is the whole thing about, I don't know which specific tradition teaches this, but it's a lot of ancient secret society stuff. Like they talk about this, I don't want to say any particular one because I might get in trouble if I talk about a specific tradition, but there's this idea that Satan, Lucifer, the one who...
The fallen angel.
The fallen angel who talked to Eve about it is actually the good guy in this story.
Oh, right, yeah.
So you'll hear that because he's the one that opened their eyes against the oppressive, patriarchy
of God, right?
The patriarchy. I've heard it this way, man.
I have too. Yeah.
The patriarchy of God, and Lucifer was trying to unshackle humanity from this oppressive man.
Yeah.
Who obviously was a white man with a privilege. God is.
Oh, right. He has a white beard.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that though is like when you do look at that story and you think about, he gives first of all man free will.
Yep.
So there's freedom. And secondly, he gives them all these other things that he can do except for this one restriction.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is that when you think about evil, you think about it. What does it do? It binds you. It's bondage. It's control. Yeah. And so freedom is not the word associated with evil. What's associated with evil is always the opposite of freedom. And that's exactly what God was trying to protect Adam and Eve from. But he wasn't going to force them into it. He was going to give them the opportunity to obey him, or reject him.
Right.
And that's true freedom, and that's based out of love for you
Is I guess like
and goodness.
yeah, if you would think about it, I'm just saying this right now, the whole idea of exactly that, the idea of Satan being the hero to unshackle us, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the ability that turned us into. How do I say? I'll rephrase this. Because God made us with the ability to disobey and truly have that freedom to reject him and his word, that just proves that we aren't made to be robots that only obey him. I mean, right there, that's the argument that's made contrary to that is kind of disproven in the fact that there is the ability from the beginning.
Yeah. And I wonder, to me, the bigger question is it's a knowledge of good and evil. So it's an understanding of, when I think the knowledge, that word there is like the same word to know, like intimately.
Right.
Like it's like, Adam knew his wife.
It's not gnosis.
Eve. Right. It's not
book knowledge.
Right. It's not just that. But so my thought was like, I wonder if the tree of knowledge and good and evil was experiential evil of good and evil in that way. And if we would have never eaten from it, we never would have experienced, like the innocence would have remained, and the whole like lack of experience of evil and just in humanity.
So that's interesting, because there's a lot of stuff, obviously, it doesn't beg the question, but that you'll hear people, obviously the stuff that's written about in the Gospels about Jesus's teaching in his life. He was 33 years. There's a lot of stuff that maybe there's even miracles that he healed the blind more than one occasion, and they just used a specific instance to talk about a specific time that Jesus did for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other stuff that he obviously did on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
That isn't recorded. So I was going to say, I wonder if there's, so just because it doesn't talk about it in the Bible, you brought up this really good point. That's where I'm going with it. That we don't even know if Adam wasn't tempted multiple times before that. We don't know that that this was the 100th time that he actually got Eve, right?
Yeah. I mean, we don't know that, but I'm suspect that it was the first temptation that got him.
Gotcha.
That's my kind of theory. I think I do think that if there, and here's the reason why, everything that God removes in the redemption process is human effort. So he has to, we talked about this, like the plan of redemption was before the foundations of earth, right? The Lamb of God was slain before the foundations of the earth is what Revelation talks about. And so before the fall, God had the plan for redemption because of his sovereignty, knowing it all. But he knew that redemption couldn't come through the effort of man in any way. And so I think that and this is the beauty of the gospel, right? Jesus is the one that did that and is the only one that could do that. And my thought is that if a bunch of temptations came, it would seem like it would present human effort to be able to
reject them prior to
maintain perfection.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But we were utterly defenseless, and it was a deception and temptation combined. It wasn't just temptation. There was deception involved with it too. So that's the deceptions what robbed the innocence, the rejection and the temptation to disobey God was what caused the sin to enter the world.
Yeah. I just want to go ahead and say, I don't anything that I necessarily say I'm doing. I'm not saying that I believe it. Just,
right. No. Yeah.
I just want to give the listeners, I'm stepping aside and just giving you the inside baseball that I'm kind of playing the devil's advocate and asking questions that I think most people might come up.
Well, it was a great question.
Stepping back into
no, I remember, and we were talking, and we do this all the time. We're like, well, what if this or what if that? And it may not even be what our position is,
right?
On it.
I just don't want people thinking I'm like some heretic or something.
Oh yeah, our podcast has no influence, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, it's true. All 5 of you listening. So,
but so that was a cool question, like the purpose of the tree in the garden, and I enjoyed thinking about that a little bit, and I'm glad I found this pretty concise.
Yeah, so
I'm comfortable with that answer myself.
yeah, and so we actually don't do a lot of apologetics, but this is also for you guys. If you have questions,
Yeah.
you should send them our way.
Yeah.
I can't answer a lot of them, but yeah. So, anyways, hopefully that helps. That stumped me in my personal life,
Yeah.
and there you go.
So there was another thing too that
There
we
was
talked
another
about.
thing.
Do you want to explain that one or?
Yeah.
Okay, good, because I think you'll do better than me.
Okay. So during during my drive, I was listening to something, and I was listening to a question and answer session kind of thing. And the question was, so there's these verses in Genesis that I'm going to go ahead and read, and
Okay.
I'll give some context to it, and then maybe the listener will pick up on the question that I'm going to ask. But
Where are you in Genesis?
Genesis 4.
Okay.
So Cain has just killed Abel. All right. So I'll start at Genesis 4:13, just to give some context.
Okay.
Wait, actually, I'm going to skip back a little bit. So Genesis 4:9. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel your brother?" And he said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" He said, "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. Now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand." This is God talking. "When you cultivate the ground, it will no longer yield its strength to you. You will be a vagrant and a wanderer on the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is too great to bear. Behold, you have driven me this day from the face of the ground, and from your face I will be hidden, and I will be a vagrant and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." So the Lord said to him, "Therefore, whoever kills Cain, vengeance will be taken on him sevenfold." And the Lord appointed a sign for Cain, so that no one finding him would slay him. Then Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. And this last verse was the one when I was reading before the podcast I didn't talk about before, but it leaves credence to my question.
Okay.
It says, Cain had relations with his wife, and she conceived and gave birth to Enoch, and he built a city and called the name of the city Enoch after the name of his son. And then it just goes in. But there's a couple things in there that maybe people don't realize it, but it begged this question when he says, so Cain says, "I will be a vagrant and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." So whoever finds me
Yeah.
is one of the words. The second one is that the Lord says, I'm reading out of the NSAB, but other versions say he put a mark on Cain so that no one finding him would slay him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one was the thing that Enoch built a city. Okay, so if you're not jiving with these,
Yeah.
to use the term whoever, and for God to place, so whoever, if Cain's talking to God and God knows everything,
Mm-hmm.
and he just killed the third out of 4 people on the planet of the earth, on the whole planet, why wouldn't he say, if my parents find me, they're going to kill me?
Right.
Why wouldn't he, say specific terms? And why would God need to put a mark on Cain so that,
Right.
traditionally, Adam and Eve wouldn't find him because they know who he is. They know he killed him.
Right.
So, and then the whole thing about that he built a city.
Right.
So granted, that one could be, okay, maybe it's hundreds of years that Enoch built his own city, but why would he need to build a city, boom, 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 if there's other people on the planet at the time,
Right.
outside of what the biblical this
to,
account says?
To summarize, what your question that in your mind was, okay, there's the people we know about that are recorded.
Yes.
Were there other people that were not recorded that were coexisting with Adam and Eve
Yes. And so
and their offspring?
so there's a couple questions.
Okay.
Couple versions of this. So, A, was there other people that are part of the lineage of Adam and Eve? So other brothers, other sisters, obviously Seth comes to replace Abel, but were there other brothers and sisters who, I guess, incestually had kids?
Right.
And other people. So there's other people on the planet.
Yeah.
So that's question A. Question B is, or were there other people on the planet outside of the lineage of Adam and Eve in the same vicinity, theoretically, that were also created either after the fall, before the fall, or, were there other people that either existed from that same lineage of Adam and Eve?
That didn't come from Adam and Eve.
Or were there people that did not come from Adam and Eve?
Right. Okay. The answer is yes. So I kind of look at it this way. A lot of people freak out when they find out that Jesus had brothers and sisters.
Right.
And like we know James, like most people know James was his brother, but he had other brothers and sisters. Like we don't even know any of their names.
Right.
Like we don't know who they were. We only know like one verse I believe it's in Matthew's gospel, but I'm not positive, where he just says, "Where are my brothers and sisters?"
Right.
Because they say, "Hey, your brothers and sisters are here." And I take that back. There might be another verse that speaks of his siblings as well.
And he's not speaking for the people, like
Right.
my brothers in a global sense.
No, it was like his legitimate. I think it was I may have made a mistake, and this is off the top of my head. I don't have my.
Yeah, no one's going to hold you accountable.
Yeah, but there may have been another spot where I think he was speaking, and they were criticizing Jesus because they're like, "Isn't this the guy from Nazareth that like he's Joseph's son, and he have like other brothers and sisters too?"
Yeah.
Like there was some mention of that, but I don't know if Jesus himself mentions it other than that one place. But
there was mention in the Bible.
right.
Yeah.
But a lot of people freak out when they hear, they're like, "What? Jesus didn't have-" They think of him as this only child that like was raised in this, perfectly sanitary place. And so what it does is our minds, when we read these things, we isolate to the words on the page, and we don't realize that the words on the page can only contain so much of the story. And there's more going on outside the words of that page. And we know that because of keys and clues that are given to us. For instance, like he had to go build a city, or he went and built a city. Well, you don't build a city if it's just you.
Right.
You build a hut and you just fight off dinosaurs at this point, or whatever, I'm just kidding. But so if there's a need for a city, then obviously there's more people around. So then the question begs, which is what you're asking, is did they come from the incestuous, and it sounds horrible to say it that way, but
that's the standard.
Scientifically, that's what it would be.
That's
right?
the standard question, that a response that Christians, I guess, typically I've always heard growing up is, well, how do I respond to this? And youth pastors are just like, you have to believe that, which I'm not saying this isn't wrong, but this is the answer that I always heard, and it was always kind of icky. And they always preface it by, it's kind of different back then. God's sovereignty made sure that there weren't going to be any practical birth defects. Those kind of answers is always what I heard is God would take care of it, and it wasn't the same as incest now.
It was almost like permissive will. God lets it happen because he had to,
but he also took care and made sure there wasn't any massive birth defects.
Right. And I've also heard that sin causes birth defects, and so sin spreading throughout the world, the effects of sin would be more ravaging. The closer you are to the inception of sin, the less ravaged you would be. So it wouldn't have its effect. So I've heard that, which would mean the more pure chromosome, whatever. It's late. I can't speak. So you know what I'm saying. But here's what I would say to that. So we know based on the clues of the story that there were other people. Did they come through incestuous, or did they come from other families? Now, it's very, very possible that God made other families. It's also very, very possible that because they lived to be so long, and so old, like 900 years old was Methuselah, right? He was like, or I think even Adam lived to be 900 years old. But they lived to be so long. Just think of what middle age is. 400 years old, right?
Yeah.
So you're in the 450 years old. How many kids could you have in 450 years?
A lot.
Even if you just took the window from like say we don't start having kids from like 20 to like 40. So there's a 20 year window, but we live to be 80. So 20 years is 1/4 of our life. So for 100 out of 900 years old, or even if you say you live to be 400 years old, 100 years of that life are going to be having kids. How many kids could you have in 100 years? You could have a lot of kids.
Almost 100 if you had one.
You could probably have more than 100 kids in 100 years.
Twins, yeah.
Yeah, so my thing is that because of the length of life, the expansion of families could be much quicker and much more, like you would have many more kids than traditional today, what we're dealing with.
So would you say that okay, I get what you're saying.
Here's where I get hung up.
The dispersal of the chromosomes, it's possible for them to have 3 or 4 generations that are so far removed from each other that there wouldn't be birth defects. Because you could have, Eve's kid has a kid, has a kid, has a kid, and then that kid has relations with
right.
someone else who's from a different kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically that's what if Adam and Eve were the progenitors of a human race, then we're dealing with that right now.
Yeah.
We're so far removed. So could
like
they
on
get
the pyramid?
Yeah.
We're on opposite ends.
Right. Could they be so far removed that it wouldn't even genetically show up? And I think there's a possibility of that.
Yeah.
So there's that side of it. And the other side of it, where this is where I love the thought of it, but I can't get there.
Yeah.
In my mind, like theologically, is were there other people that were created by God outside of Adam and Eve? So you have Adam and Eve in the garden, and then were there people outside the garden that were made and living before Adam and Eve were evicted out of the garden? And that's where I get like hung up on, because it's hard for me to imagine God doing that, because the garden was the place to be. That was the place to want to be, to remain. That was where, when they were evicted out, they put angels in front of and they blockaded it, and then the flood hit it completely. We don't know where it is now, but that we want, back to Eden was the thing.
Yeah.
In fact, there's record. In fact, the whole reason that Cain and Abel got, they had their thing, and Cain killed Abel, is because they were going back to make an offering to God in sacrifice at the place where the angel was guarding them from getting back into the Garden of Eden. That's where traditionally known that they would go back to go. So they even had still visual access to the garden, but they just couldn't get into it. And so it's hard for me to think of families outside of that existing from God. So I lean personally that, it's Adam and Eve, lots of kids, lots of time, boom, 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 boom. And so you think about how that would work, and it's not so hard to wrap your mind around it. That's me. And then we also don't have dates in these stories with Genesis. We don't know how old Cain and Abel were.
Right.
What if Cain and Abel were what if they were both in their 90s when they got in this big fight? Or one was in their 90s and one was in their 60s.
Their 600s.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows? And so at that point, the population, and the other thing too is I did a study once on the population of the planet at the time of the flood, and it was about, and it was the estimates, it's hard to be really sure, but based on these type of things like that we're doing right now, they say that the estimates that it could have been up to 7 billion people on the planet at the time of the flood. That's where we are right now.
Yeah.
So, and it actually could have been quicker than to get to that point, because it's more than likely before the Pangea. So, which the flood, in my opinion, caused the Pangea, which is where we had the separation of the land masses. At the receding of the waters, and over time that happened. So you could go anywhere on the planet and it was all one landmass. more than likely.
Right.
At this time. So that lends itself to being easy too, to spreading out, dispersing, and being. So you have like a whole clan of people go to the north and they grow big red beards and they, carve out trees and they look like Vikings or whatever. Suddenly they have their own group of people. They're marrying within their own group and continuing on. And that's why they all have red beards or whatever. You know what I mean? So genetically, I don't know all the details. I'm obviously not a biologist or, we need to get Dr. Lou Wing on here and talk about it. We should have him back on again and talk about this thing. But since I'm not a geneticist, I can't tell you what those factors look like. But it makes sense to me to see that we could easily move past those danger zones, if you will.
Yeah. Because I think right now, isn't it? It's like legally, and this is so creepy to think about, but modern time now, I think you can legally marry in most places in the country.
First cousin.
No. First cousin. I was going to say, I think after like third, you're safe because that's enough diversity that it's not.
I think first cousins can get married.
No,
Don't ask me why I know this.
All right.
Yeah. I thought it was further out.
All right.
Because,
Austin the sticker maker tells us second cousin.
But
also Noah, after the flood, like he had 3 kids. How did they
Right.
do it? I mean, they had to have their first cousins.
Yeah.
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 Also the Nephilim.
Some of them were Nephilim. That's the thing.
Like even with Cain and Abel and all that, the Nephilim were around.
It's true.
I'm gonna Google. You keep talking. I'm gonna Google real quick. What's the legal marriage between? Can first cousins get married?
I just want to build up the suspense. But I was gonna say.
Don't ask me why, FBI.
Asking for a friend.
Yeah, asking for a friend.
My wife's gonna be like, I saw your Google search. What's
Right.
Asking for my first cousin.
Asking for my first cousin.
It's illegal in about half of American states.
First cousins.
Yeah, marriage between
Wow.
first cousins, however, is legal in only about half of American states.
So that means
25 states.
Well, there you go.
Do you want to know if Virginia's on that list?
Yes.
Do you have a hot cousin?
No.
Yeah. That's always going to be the answer. No.
Nope.
Even if you did. Nope. Mm-mm.
Nope.
It looks like Virginia is first cousin marriage is legal.
Doesn't do a thing for me. Doesn't that piece of knowledge? Well,
Ironically, West Virginia bans first cousin marriages.
wow.
They've had to by now.
Ironically.
Because
And
it's an epidemic over there.
there's 4 states that it's a criminal offense. Texas is one of them. Oklahoma,
That doesn't surprise me.
Nevada.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
So there you go. So there was.
And then
Defi-
there's some that are banned with exception. So I wonder what that means.
Yeah.
Before you got married.
Oh, you didn't know? Yeah, that'd be a good
Yeah,
one. I
maybe.
guess so, like if you're a Mormon.
Well, I was gonna say I know in the certain ethnic
Yeah.
communities, it's required to have. You have to do a DNA test to make sure that you're not too closely related because the homogeneous population of a particular
Yeah.
people group is very select. You only breed. You only marry within your own.
You said breed.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I know what you're saying.
Let's not jump around. You only breed within the same people group.
Yeah.
And if the group is relatively small compared to the rest of the world, you want to make sure you're not marrying too close into it.
Yeah.
So,
And there's some people groups that you can marry your brother to get into the states of the United States.
that is true. You can marry your brother and
Yeah. And
then
divorce them.
divorce and then marry another guy
Yep.
and then divorce
That guy.
that guy
And then have an affair.
with another married guy.
And you can go from religion to religion. From like Muslim to Christian back to Muslim.
Is that what she did?
One of her husbands was a Christian.
Wait, so the white guy she's with now is a Muslim?
I think he's a Christian.
Oh.
So
And he's white. So, yeah, we're talking about the Representative Ilhan Omar.
Yeah. She's one
But
of
yeah,
my
so anyways.
favorites.
So to sum it up, was there other people during Cain and Abel's time during the
Yes.
murder?
Yes. Where'd they come from? We have no clue.
No clue.
Maybe they were the what is it with the aliens? They
The spores,
seeded the earth.
panspermia.
Panspermia.
Yeah. The aliens came down and made sure we didn't breathe too closely
Yeah.
to one another. The alien gods were looking out for us.
Thank you, Anunnaki alien gods.
Anunnaki, yes. So
That was interesting, man. Those were great questions. And you know what's funny is like we concisely did this in a good time here, good time frame.
Yeah.
With some banter. It went on forever when we were talking about it last week.
yeah,
It was like a 2-hour conversation.
yeah. Well, there's a lot of other stuff we talked about that we didn't
That's
touch
true.
on now.
That's true.
That would probably maybe make up for a good episode later on.
Oh man, look, listener, I just want to apologize. Technical things happen all the time, and we just happened to get it. The lottery fell on us this time.
Yeah. I think this is a good podcast. I don't know why you're apologizing.
Well, I was apologizing because all right, I apologize for apologizing. I'm one of those guys. Sorry,
But,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for interrupting.
I'm sorry for me.
So anyways, we hope you enjoyed it, and
Give us your address so we can mail
Yes.
you a sticker. How about that,
yeah,
Do
give us your
that.
address.
partner? And we'll mail you a beautiful All Out War sticker that's like latex
It's
vinyl.
waterproof.
Vinyl,
yeah,
not
they're high
latex.
quality. They're not cheapy.
Yeah, they're super high quality. It won't fade. It will look fantastic. Oh, and you had an idea too. Remember you were talking about the if you can tag us in a photo, put it on Instagram on where you stick the sticker, not on you. We don't want to see that. But someplace else that's creative and unique where it might get some attention. So if you put it like on, say, illegal, no place illegal.
So if you own a building in downtown New York City,
Right.
if you own, I don't know, Trump Tower, and you have the legal authority to put a sticker
Yeah,
on the front door of that,
right.
we will send you another sticker
That's
to
right.
make up for it.
And you tag us and we see it. We'll make sure you're rewarded for your
And again, this is all completely legal.
has to be legal.
Don't hold us accountable.
Right.
It has nothing to do with us.
Right. We don't.
Keep it legal.
We're not asking you to do
But
this.
be creative,
Be creative. Yeah.
because that'd be fun.
That'd be fun. That'd be
Legal.
fun.
Keep it legal. We're not telling you to do anything illegal.
Legal's always fun anyways.
Yes.
Right. Anyway, so yeah,
Yes.
so give us your DM us, hit us up in DM, slide into our DMs. Right? Is that what the kids say today?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thanks for listening. It's been a great podcast.
It was.
Nothing to apologize about this,
No.
my friend.
But we are going to apologize for you not being able to ever hear the podcast that we'll never ever release
right.
because it
Yeah.
doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, the one that we recorded
The
earlier.
one that got away.
Yeah. So
And
hey,
we will never tell you who it is.
that's right. That's right. We'll never know. Good luck trying to figure it out.
Could have been the president. Could
Could
have
have
been a
been.
really big deal.
It could have been Donald Trump. They don't know.
Could have been anyone.
Could have been. Could have been my cat. I don't even have a cat.
But it could have been.
Could have been. Right. All right, guys. We'll
Yeah,
catch you
guys.
next time on All Out War.
All right. No, stay hydrated. I forgot.
Stay hydrated.
Stay
That's your favorite.
hydrated.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the All Out War podcast today. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to know more, you can visit us on the web at alloutwar.us, or you can find us on Twitter at alloutwarcast. Hey, thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time.